With the holidays rolling in, that means some of us might be eating some foods that maybe we aren't used to eating, which may mean that we have some heartburn, some acid reflux, some indigestion. That's okay. Today's look at the digestive system is going to help you understand why those things might be happening. Hi, I'm Stacey, Meiji nutritional therapy practitioner and owner here at Gut Check Nutritional Therapy. So I see a lot of people in my practice that struggle with heartburn, acid reflux, and/or indigestion. You guys, and that's a common thing. It happens to a lot of people, and especially during the holidays when we start eating a lot of foods that maybe we aren't used to eating, right? We overindulge a little bit during the holidays, and that's okay. But I'm here to talk to you about why that happens, just so that you can have a better understanding. So digestion actually starts in the brain, right? Imagine when you go into a restaurant and you start smelling the food, right? You smell that garlic or Parmesan at the Italian restaurant and you start salivating a little bit, right? You're sitting at the table looking at your menu, you're thinking about the food that you want to order, you salivate even more, right? Waitress walks by with the food, ooh, what's she eating? What is that? That looks delicious, right? That's all part of the digestive process. You have to give yourself time to kind of relax and enjoy that so that you get those digestive enzymes being produced in your saliva, right? The whole purpose of digestion, the whole point is to break foods down into the smallest particle possible so that your body can absorb all of the nutrients in the food that you're gonna eat, right? So I always say it's not so much you are what you eat, it's you are what you absorb. Because if digestion isn't working properly, you could have the cleanest diet in the world and you're not gonna absorb the nutrients that are in your food. So I have a fun little diagram here. I'm just gonna walk you through how digestion works, okay? So we talked about, you start thinking about food, you smell food, right? You get the digestive enzymes going. Digestive enzymes help break food down, right? There's protease and amylase and lipase. Those are all digestive enzymes that your body produces on its own to help break food down again into those really small particles. So you eat the food, it goes in your mouth, you chew it up. Again, you're trying to get it into the smallest particle possible, so chewing is very important. The food goes down your esophagus and then it hangs out, it lands in the stomach. So you need the contents of the stomach to be super acid. You need it to reach a certain acid point. So the stomach leads into the small intestine by way of this little valve here, the pyloric sphincter or the pylorus valve. So this small intestine will not let anything come through until it reaches that certain high acid point. So that little valve isn't gonna open unless the stomach contents are acidic enough. So this is where people start to experience some problems like heartburn and indigestion and acid reflux, right? So everything's just kind of hanging out in the stomach far too long. Imagine putting all of your food in a blender, sticking the lid on it, whirling it up, sticking it outside, let it sit all day at 98.6 degrees, right? It starts to get a little bit gross, right? The fats start to rancidify, the proteins putrefy, and the carbohydrates ferment. Fermentation, right? Think bubbles, right? Things are hanging out in the stomach way too long because they're not acid enough to move on down. They're not acidic enough. They're gonna start bubbling up into the esophagus. That's that acid reflux, that heartburn feeling that you get sometimes if you lie down after you've eaten a meal, right? It's still pretty acidic and the tissue of the esophagus is just not used to that kind of acidic contents spilling up into it, which is why it burns, right? So you want the contents of the stomach to reach that high acidity point so that that sphincter can open up and everything moves down into the small intestine, because if it's just hanging out way too long, it's gonna start bubbling up into the esophagus. We've all experienced that whole, like, you're hanging out after lunch and you feel like you got that big brick in your stomach, right? And then come 6 o'clock at night, you're like, gosh, I'm still full from lunch. Why is that? Because you didn't reach that high acidity point in your stomach and everything's just hanging out in the stomach waiting to try to become more acidic so that it can move on into the small intestine. So what can you do to help move things along, to help get that acidity level up? Well, there's a lot of things, right? Again, just staying calm while you're eating and not gulping your food, not, eating on the run. That will help. Sitting down, putting your feet flat on the floor and taking a couple deep breaths before you actually start eating, that helps your body kind of catch up so that it can start producing those digestive enzymes on its own. Another thing you can do, and I know that's kind of hard, you guys, during the holidays, you got some family members that maybe drive you a little crazy. Just do the best you can, right? Another thing you can do is not gulp a bunch of water during your meal. That will actually dilute the digestive enzymes that your body is making. So save your big water consumption for outside of meals. You can sip on water during your meal, but try not to gulp all your water during your meals. That will really, really help. And then if worse comes to worse, there are digestive enzymes that you can take as a supplement form that you can buy at any drugstore, right? They just make sure that they've got protease, amylase, and lipase in there to help break down the foods for you. Once everything is finally acidic enough, that little valve is finally going to open the gate and say, yes, please move on to the small intestine, right? So then your food can finally start traveling into the top portion of the small intestine. Well, then you've got your liver and your gallbladder. Those get involved too. The liver has like 9 million functions in the body, but one of which is to produce bile. Bile is what we need to break down fats, right? It's kind of like the, you forgot to clean the pan this morning when you made a big batch of bacon. You've got that dried up bacon grease on the pan when you get home from work. What are you gonna do, right? You're gonna use cold water to clean it. You're gonna use hot soapy water. Bile is like that hot soapy water on the bacon grease. It breaks it down so that your body can actually utilize all the fats. So the liver makes the bile and then it stores it in that little tiny pouch over there called the gallbladder. Every time you eat something with fats in it, the gallbladder contracts and it squirts that bile out. So you want that bile to be nice and thin. It's kind of like a squirt gun. Every time you eat some fat, it squirts a little bile in there, it breaks the fat down, you can absorb everything that you need from it, and then things move on. A lot of times we get into trouble, our bile gets a little thick and kind of gummy and mucky, and all of a sudden you got this squirt gun full of mud, and every time you eat something with fat in it, your gallbladder tries to contract, but it can't squirt the bile out. And then, that can sometimes lead to an inflamed gallbladder, and then some people have their gallbladders removed as a result of that. And that's fine, you can live without your gallbladder, but the liver's still making bile, where's it gonna store it, right? So then it just starts dripping bile into the small intestine, kind of willy-nilly. The timing gets a little bit off, so a lot of times people that don't have a gallbladder have trouble digesting fatty foods. And then from there, everything just moves on down through that squiggly small intestine and then up into the large intestine. Large intestine is just kind of like the big recycler. It takes anything and everything it can, just as a last resort, a last way to recycle. Usually it's water. It takes water out and puts it back into the body. And then we all know what happens after that, right? It ends up as poop. So there you go. That's your digestive system, how it works. I hope that helps you guys this holiday season when maybe you overindulge a little bit and you've got maybe some tummy trouble. So think about those digestive enzymes, thinking about sitting and trying to stay as calm as possible while you eat and not guzzling your water or wine during meals. All right, see you guys next time.